The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
Tonight on Politics Now, anti-ICE protests in Las Vegas. We'll look at demonstrations outside schools and in city council meetings.
Did you play a blind eye to the complaints?
Tough questions. State lawmakers press the LVCVA over its oversight of the Vegas Loop project. And settling in, new CCSD Board President Emily Stevens tells us her goals for the year.
You're watching Politics Now with John Langler on 8 News Now.
Thank you very much for joining us. Another week of protests against ICE activity. Demonstrations were held all across the country, but the focus is still on Minneapolis. Several anti-ICE protesters were arrested this week for interrupting a church service over the past weekend. And at the same time, Vice President J.D. Vance visited the city to talk about restoring law and order. Gabrielle Carocciolo reports.
As tensions remain high in Minnesota, several people are under arrest for allegedly playing a role in organizing this protest at a church in St. Paul.
Renee Good!
They face federal charges after interrupting the church services to protest a pastor who also works for ICE. Earlier this week, Nikema Armstrong spoke with our colleagues at News Nation.
As a reverend, when I see a church allowing a minister to have a dual role like that, I have a duty to speak out, and I'm unapologetic about it.
If you go and storm a church, if you go and assault a federal law enforcement officer, we are going to try very hard. We're going to use every resource of the federal government to put you in prison.
The vice president was also in Minnesota Thursday, speaking with local leaders and community members about restoring law and order.
Respect people's rights. Respect people's rights to worship, respect people's rights to do their job without being assaulted. Come out and protest me, protest our immigration policy, but do it peacefully.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill,
ICE is out of control.
Democratic leaders remain critical of ICE, but stop short of fully supporting the protesters' actions.
I think across the board, we all should respect houses of worship.
In Washington, I'm Gabrielle Caracciolo.
Here in Southern Nevada, demonstrations against ICE took 2 different forms. Earlier this week, protesters showed up at Henderson's city council meeting. ICE houses people facing illegal immigration charges at the Henderson Detention Center, and Henderson police will hold those with an ICE detainer. During public comment, critics highlighted the city's agreement with Homeland Security, and ICE supporters also spoke.
Because children are scared to go to school now, regardless of their immigration status, because they're afraid that they're going to get home and their parents are going to be disappeared.
Our support for ICE is awesome. What we're doing to keep our communities safe.
City officials say the police department's agreement with ICE is under evaluation, and it'll come up for conversation again later this year. Protests also held at high schools across Clark County. This week, students walked out of class to demonstrate against ICE. Hundreds chanted here in front of Desert Pines High School, holding signs and encouraging classmates to join them. Pilar Oropezia says ICE agents deported a classmate's father, and she says school administrators have not been supportive.
They laughed at us, they turned their backs at us, and now they're threatening that they want to suspend us.
In a statement, CCSD says it does encourage students to be active participants in democracy. They were given unexcused absences. CCSD says it does not check a student's immigration status. Elsewhere in Clark County School District, big changes coming to class start times. This week, CCSD announced its plans to shift when school starts. In the fall, high school will begin class at 8:30 instead of 7. Middle schools will start about 30 minutes earlier, about 7:30. State education leaders have pushed to shift times for years. CCSD Superintendent Joan Ebert, as you know, is the former state superintendent, and she says this will help students get more sleep and improve academic performance.
It's about our kids. That's why we come to work every single day, and I'm really happy about this shift. And we will help parents identify, resources that they need to be successful as a family as well, to get their kids to school. Kids need to be in their seats every single day.
Yeah, truancy has been an issue before at CCSD. The district's also expanding its bus fleet to accommodate these changes. That'll hire 51 new drivers. The district already operates the largest school bus fleet in the country. Clark County's school board has a new president, Trustee Emily Stevens, chosen for that role. This week she spoke with 8 News Now education reporter Joshua Peguero, and they started by discussing low enrollment.
What do you see as one of the biggest challenges?
I think you're right. You know, when enrollment goes down, you have less funds because in the state of Nevada, the money follows the student. So if the student doesn't stay at the Clark County School District, or if they move away, or if we're not seeing an influx of kindergartners coming in because there is a lower birth rate, then you have less money to work with. What I think has really been interesting has been watching our superintendent rally up the team and actually go hit the streets. They go visit people's homes. We have people in our schools that are actually calling folks like, hey, you've been absent for a little while. And if they can't get a hold of them, they do a home visit. And so they're making valiant effort to try to bring our kids back in school who maybe aren't attending for various reasons. But it's always going to be a challenge when you're seeing birth rates across the country go down. And there's more variety now in Nevada too. You see that. We have a lot of different schools out here, so more families get to choose, and that's fine too. So it's a challenge, but I think that we're up for it.
What's your vision as board president?
If you've ever seen Joan Ebert on camera, or if she's at an event, she's probably the biggest champion for the school district. She's one of the biggest cheerleaders for the school district. And I would like to see this board, because we are a big team, we're a team of 12, so I would like to see us really rally alongside her in that manner and continue to uplift and praise all these amazing people in our district.
Less than a year into Superintendent Ebert's tenure, I'm sure some of it was what the previous superintendent, Brendan Larson-Mitchell, had put in place. But I know that reading levels are just not there, and recently they're citing Mississippi as a state who went from 48th in terms of reading proficiency to now the top 10. Is there any sort of ideas you wish, or any sort of programs you wish that are implemented in CCSD to boost academic performance?
So there's a few things, especially when you're talking about an elementary level. At an elementary level, it was Joan Ebert that brought in the Portrait of a Nevada Learner. And so it's the idea that every single child needs something different. And when our educators really adopt that, and they're even piloting different programs to help learn, like project-based learning and things like that. You'll see different classrooms trying things like this to help that learner as an individual get what they need, instead of your typical just blanket, I'm just gonna teach it this one way and whoever gets it does and whoever doesn't is falling behind. We're trying not to be a school district that does that anymore. Now it's much more innovative, and you're seeing teachers get really creative in the classroom, and it's been really fun to learn about this and actually go to the classrooms and see it myself. Has been pretty phenomenal.
What is something that you really want to focus on as board president?
I would like to see just the continued focus on transparency. I think that's huge. And I think that's one of the things that we're doing well, but we need to continue down that path, and we need to continue, like I said earlier, just be a cheerleader for the folks in this district, both the students, the faculty, the teams that are out there doing the work. I think for a long time there's been a negative feel for the Clark County School District, and I want to see that change. Every day I want it to be better.
Out of CCSD's 11 trustees, 4 are appointed and cannot vote, but that changes next year. State lawmakers did approve giving those non-voting members voting power. More questions this week for the Vegas Loop project. State lawmakers grilled the LVCVA over that tunnel construction, and some wonder if the agency's turning a blind eye to the construction and the environmental violations. 8 News Now reporter James Schaefer has that story.
A representative for the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority reiterated that they are not the Boring Company, but that didn't stop state lawmakers from peppering them with questions about the underground project, which once complete is set to be the biggest in the country, second only to the New York City subway system.
I want to know the number of worker complaints and environmental complaints that were submitted during the construction phase at the LVCVA during 2019 to 2023. I want to know what the specifics are, including the ones that weren't picked up by OSHA.
Democratic State Senator Fabian Dignante grilling the LVCVA's Ed Finger, which privately operates a portion of the Boring Company's Vegas Loop project, a project which recently has been subject to environmental fines for illegal dumpings and worker injury investigations.
Did you play a blind eye to the complaints?
We don't turn a blind eye to employee safety ever, and haven't.
Lawmakers then digging into this underground system's above-ground operations announced last month for the airport.
That will reduce our chance to get a ride significantly.
Rideshare drivers like Ramon Avila expressing concerns of his own. But that's not what concerned lawmakers. Instead, it was if this system should be taxed differently, since it now uses surface streets. Leading Democratic State Senator Dina Neal to ask if the state is missing out on some tax revenue.
That is the quagmire that I'm trying to unravel and understand is, does someone owe the state some money?
Now, those questions on the above-ground routes were actually halted when a lawyer reminded lawmakers that that is actually currently going through district court. We wait in a few weeks for those questions to resurface. Reporting, James Schaefer, 8 News Now.
So the above-ground Vegas Loop Route 2 Reed Airport should be fully underground later this year. Next on Politics Now, bringing down energy prices. We'll speak with Senator Catherine Cortez Masto about her energy price bill and attempts to regulate prediction markets. Plus, the race for state assembly. We'll take a new look at fundraising and key battles, plus for North Las Vegas mayor. This is 8 News Now.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
This week in Washington, the House passed a new round of funding bills, and now it's up to the Senate to approve them and avoid a government shutdown, which could conceivably happen January 30th. This week, I discussed that and other topics with Nevada Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, and we start with the U.S. energy policy. Would you prefer the focus be on trying to get minerals and resources just domestically, or as it seems as though the method is from the White House in some cases, getting it from other parts of the world?
You do both.
Is it both? Yeah.
So it's both, right? Yeah. So it's both, and that's what we need to figure out as a country. Here's what I do know as I sit on energy and natural resources, and I've said this time and again, our energy portfolio in Nevada and what we put in that energy portfolio is going to be based on our geography and our opportunities, right? We have more sun here, so solar makes sense here, right? But it doesn't make sense in some states where there's not a lot of solar. We have geothermal all over north part of the state, northeastern part of the state. That makes sense for us, but it's not in other places. So we should not be dictating and picking favorites, whether it's fossil fuels or clean energy, right? The goal here is to make sure there's a mix of energy portfolios, but for all of us, as we define our energy portfolio, we should also be mandating that we reduce our carbon footprint. That should be the outcome of all of it.
Well, do you envision that a shutdown is still possible? Has enough been done on concerns from Democrats' point of view to get these packages to the president's desk?
Yeah, so let me just put in perspective for people. We've already passed several appropriations bills.
Right.
So they're done. We've done our job there. Those agencies will run and keep moving, and so there's
partial
no worry.
Shutdown, I should say.
Right. So the question is on these next bills, and right now I don't have an answer for you until I see. They just passed out of the House. They all passed out of the House right now. So now they're going to come to the Senate, and I will take a look at those bills to see.
In the House, it seemed as though there was pretty much bipartisan agreement on the three main components of the package. They separated out the funding for Homeland Security. I'm wondering if on the Senate level, or just for you, if you have hesitations about increasing funding for ICE, other sort of Homeland Security related measures, given what's been going on nationwide, in Minneapolis right now most notably. Do you have issues you'd like addressed first before you are confident in that measure?
Well, let me just say this. I think anybody watching the news right now should be and rightfully outraged about the excessive force that ICE is utilizing. It is excessive force. They are violating individuals' rights, including U.S. citizens. They are engaging in domestic civilian policing, which they do not have standards for and or normally engage in that type of activity. They are actually right now have so much money because of the Republican tax bill. There's about $75 billion in excess of what they already annually will receive that ICE has right now. And because they have so much money, they have hired very quickly this kind of enforcement that we see happening right now. And they have decreased the standards for hiring. They have less training. And they're not trained for domestic community policing like our state and local police. So they don't train in standards where de-escalation. They don't train in how to do a stop a car, stop a car. Or they don't train in how to enter in a search warrant in a house. There is a problem there. And because of that, and because they are reckless, they are violating people's rights. There's 170 U.S. citizens that have been arrested by the ICE.
Walk me through that legislation and how you think it would fit into Nevada.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just say this. I've spent so much time in Nevada. It's third generation. I love this state. I get around as much as I possibly can. The number one issue I hear from so many, including in my family, the high costs, grocery costs, right? I know from 2024 to 2025, people paid in excess of $300 more for groceries in this country. That's crazy. Energy costs, housing costs, healthcare costs. People are overwhelmed and they can't afford just the daily living. And there's a concern there, and rightfully so. So how do we work together in Congress to lower those costs? That's what we should be doing. Not all this other stuff that this administration is focused on. The administration should be focused on lowering costs. One way to do that is the bill that I introduced. Let's lower energy costs for folks. One example is give them back their tax credits. If they have an energy efficient home, a home builder builds an energy efficient home, gets a tax credit, lowers that cost. If you have a home and you want to make it energy efficient and do improvements, you should get a tax credit, because not only does making it energy efficient lower your energy costs, but you should get credit for doing that and putting your money out there and get some of that money back. So to me, this is a perfect example of our focus should be on helping people, lowering those costs, and introducing legislation that does just that and working to get that passed.
The Senator's bill on energy prices will get introduced next week, and we have the full interview at 8newsnow.com under the Politics Now tab. Next here on Politics Now, replacing the United Nations. A closer look at President Donald Trump's Board of Peace.
You're watching Politics Now.
A busy week of diplomacy for President Donald Trump after attending the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. He now says the concept of a deal on Greenland is close. The president also cemented his Board of Peace. Rashad Hudson has the story.
At the World Economic Forum in Davos, President Trump unveiled what he calls a new Board of Peace, a group of about 20 countries he says will help maintain a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, among other things.
Well, this isn't United States, this is for the world.
President Trump says the group will play a central role in pushing toward a long-term deal.
Together we are in a position to have an incredible chance. I don't even call it a chance. I think it's going to happen.
Some world leaders worry the Board of Peace could rival the United Nations. President Trump says he wants to work with the UN.
The United Nations has got tremendous potential, has not used it. But there's tremendous potential in the United Nations, and you have some great people at the United Nations.
Still, European allies showing signs of caution. Canada, France, and Sweden so far have not signed on. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff pushed back on any notion of division.
I think we have overwhelming support. Overwhelming.
The diplomatic rollout comes just one day after President Trump had strong words for European countries while renewing his push for the United States to acquire Greenland.
No nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States.
After those comments, NATO's Secretary General says increased Arctic security will be visible this year. Reporting in Washington, Rashad Hudson.
Politics and money. This week, yearly fundraising reports came in for candidates. Here's a look at some of the key races. Assembly Democratic Caucus Chair Elaine Marzola is running for re-election, and she has the biggest haul among Assembly Democrats. Marzola raised $400,000 last year. Her campaign still has about $350,000 to spend. Expect to see Assemblymember Marzola in a leadership position in the next legislative session. So far, she has no opponent. Money is also flowing into the race for North Las Vegas mayor. City Councilman Scott Black, the mayor pro tem, has raised more than $500,000. That's 5 times as much as Democratic Party chairwoman and Assemblymember Danielle Monroe Moreno. This is an open seat. Current Mayor Pamela Goins-Brown is term limited, and she has endorsed Black's campaign. In the race for Henderson Mayor, incumbent Michelle Romero has raised nearly $750,000. Her opponent is former police chief Holly Chadwick. She's raised about $20,000 since announcing her candidacy in May. Next on Politics Now, moving forward, what's next for 2 pieces of empty land near downtown Las Vegas?
Welcome back to Politics Now.
This week, the city of Las Vegas moved forward with plans to turn Cashman Center and the old Grant Sawyer building sites into a massive workforce housing project. Lennar Homes will lead the development of both sites. There'll also be some space for retail. Money from this deal will help settle the Badlands Golf Course litigation and basically finish it off. We'll see where that project goes. That'll do it for us this week here on Politics Now. Stay up to date on the latest of political news at 8newsnow.com, and we'll be back with you right here next week. Take care.